Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Bombardier has secured a new U.S. contract for 28 bilevel cars to be built here in Thunder Bay. The pact, which is worth about $108 million U.S., will provide work for 300 employees, while the company waits to find out the status of a larger contract with the Toronto Transit Commission. Ryan Benazzo has more.
Bombardier has secured an order for 28 new bilevel cars for two U.S.-based transit authorities led by Sound Transit in Seattle, Washington. The new deal extends a business relationship that dates back to the late 90s.
When we get customers that come back to us for repeat orders, that means that they're happy with the products that we're providing to them. And this is just another testament of the good work that the team here does.
The company will begin building the cars early next year. That allows work for approximately 300 employees at the plant to continue once the current 36-car GO Transit contract for Toronto is finished.
We'll start that activity, probably in some activity level in Q1 of 2021. We'll ramp up to full rate in Q2, and we'll see, a good level of activity all the way through till the middle to the end of 2022.
While this new contract is obviously good news for the local plant, it's still not enough work for Bombardier to recall any of the employees who were laid off back in the fall. But it does allow the plant to continue to operate as Bombardier waits to find out the status of larger contracts coming out of Toronto.
The TTC streetcar options, it really remains, the next key opportunity to really bridge that gap and to sort of have a stable workforce.
The company laid off 500 employees back in November. There are currently about 470 people working at the plant. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
The provincial government says it's taking over management of 5 more long-term care homes battling COVID-19 outbreaks following the release of a damning Canadian Armed Forces report. This comes as Premier Ford released details of an independent commission that will investigate the allegations of abuse. Colin DeMello reports.
Amid widespread anger over long-term care, Premier Doug Ford was driven to action. 4 out of the 5 long-term care homes that were cited in the Canadian military report are now being taken over by the province. The government is also speeding up an independent commission into long-term care, one of many that will investigate the system.
When we have the auditor, we have the coroner, we have the police, we have an independent commission, I'll tell you, there won't be a piece of dust on the floor that they aren't going to be inspecting.
The Premier is promising the commission will be at arm's length from the government. Witnesses will be called, the final report will be made public, and Ford himself is willing to testify.
And they have the full authority to investigate our government, my office, the ministry's office. 100% I'll be a witness.
In the meantime, however, the government says it will tighten up inspections of long-term care homes. When the Ford government took office in 2018, they relaxed the inspection process. Instead of yearly checkups, inspectors would only check in if a complaint was lodged. In fact, during this pandemic, inspectors were only calling homes to see if they were in compliance.
The inspections, if you did them every 5 minutes, it wouldn't have changed the crises in staffing in our long-term care homes.
But now the government will resurrect random spot checks and could revoke licenses if residents are being mistreated.
My message to all long-term care homes, get your act together.
The appalling stories emerging from long-term care also led to outrage at Queen's Park today.
The report is heartbreaking and horrifying. Will the Premier now agree that his Minister of Long-Term Care failed to protect seniors in our homes and ask for her resignation?
The Premier is defending the minister in charge.
Well, absolutely not. I stand behind my minister 100%.
The Premier says he will not ask for resignations just for the sake of it.
Local healthcare advocates are reacting to that shocking report alleging mistreatment, neglect, and abuse in Ontario's long-term care homes. The Canadian military released those findings yesterday, of course, and Premier Doug Ford announced changes will be made, but many feel the government should have stepped in sooner. Avery McCrae reports.
The details in the report were called horrific by Premier Doug Ford Tuesday. At a senior's home in Pickering, the military found cockroaches, flies, and rotten food. Patients left in soiled diapers for days and improper feeding, which may have led to one patient's death. Chair of the Thunder Bay Health Coalition, Jules Tupker, isn't surprised by the military's findings. Long-term care homes are underfunded, according to Tupker, and the Ontario Health Coalition has been urging the government to take action for years to improve living conditions. In Thunder Bay, the homes have their issues, but not to the level of Southern Ontario.
And having been in touch with the people in the long-term care homes here, they're very confident with what is happening, and they're very they're okay with what has happened. There are some issues, but nothing as severe as Southern Ontario.
I can't ask why government didn't respond sooner than this, that it had to take this, that residents that live in these facilities, our seniors, healthcare workers now have paid the ultimate price for government inaction on this issue.
A union representing 30,000 long-term care workers in Ontario say the Ford government isn't doing enough to protect residents and employees. While there has only been one positive COVID case in Thunder Bay seniors' homes, across the province, more than 1,500 LTC residents and hundreds of staff have been infected. CUPE's Ontario Council of Hospital Unions President Michael Hurley wants all long-term care residents who test positive to be moved to hospitals for treatment. He also believes Ontario should consider doing away with for-profit facilities.
That has to be very much on the table. The question of whether these institutions should be operated on a for-profit basis, we would say that they should not be. We would say that that actually just withdraws money that should be spent on the care of these individuals and conspires in their neglect.
Hurley's union recently polled more than 2,000 people in Thunder Bay and Kenora. 54% of respondents say the province didn't properly plan for the COVID-19 pandemic. Avery McRae, TBT News.
MPP Judith Monteith-Farrell is calling on the Ford government to provide the funding needed for a $4 an hour wage increase for frontline healthcare workers, which was announced last month. The NDP member questioned Health Minister and Deputy Premier Christine Elliott at Queen's Park this week, and she referenced a letter sent to the government by Thunder Bay Regional President Jean Bartkowiak.
As he put it, many of my staff have been working for the last more than 8 months, 7 days a week, sometimes more than 12 hours a day. And the fact that they're still waiting to find out if they even qualify for support is making things harder. Premier, when will this government ensure that frontline healthcare heroes finally get the pandemic pay they deserve?
The pandemic pay is being worked on daily. It's important to mention that the Ministry of Health has been working with over 1,000 different transfer payment agreements and getting this moving. So it should start flowing next week. All pandemic pay recipients will receive pay from the date that we first announced it. So it will be retroactive back to April 25th.
Thunder Bay Police are investigating another city shooting incident. This comes after a man turned up at the regional hospital Tuesday night with serious injuries. Police say their inquiries so far indicate the attack likely took place around 2 o'clock in the morning in the North James and Limbrick Street area and was a targeted attack. While the victim's injuries are serious, they are not believed to be life-threatening. City of Thunder Bay is set to expand a program to help residents replace lead pipes connecting to their homes to city water mains. Some 8,700 residences across the city have privately owned lead service connections. The city currently replaces lead pipes from the street to the property line at a rate of about 150 homes annually, usually during road reconstructions. Michelle Warwoda is the director of the city's Environment Division, and she'll be submitting a proposal to council on Monday night.
To help out the homeowners that have these private service lead connections, I will be bringing a report to council next week that's going to outline like a financial assistance program if they do want to replace their private side. So that will come to council next week for approval, and then you'll hopefully be hearing more about that shortly.
The city budget already includes $50,000 for a replacement loan or a rebate pilot project for lead connections. Woboda is recommending that council approve interest-free loans of up to $3,000 with a 5-year term for repayment or a maximum of 10 years. That's the estimated current average cost of replacing a lead feeder pipe on a homeowner's side of the property line. The drama continues in Emo following a decision by council not to declare June as Pride Month. A 3-2 split against the declaration 2 weeks ago was met with anger and a petition demanding council revisit and pass the motion, saying it falls under human rights laws. Adam Riley reports.
Council in Emo has once again turned down a motion to declare June Pride Month. It came after a petition launched by the area's Pride organization garnered almost 2,000 signatures to have council reconsider the motion, which was narrowly voted down on May 12th. Like the previous meeting, there were several contentious interactions on the subject between members of council.
By refusing to support Pride Month, we are legitimizing the bigoted homophobes in our community who, based on some of the comments I've seen on social media, might actually think that these kind of behaviors and actions are okay.
Dunn also got into a tense interaction with Mayor Harold McQuaker after the mayor brought into question the number of actual Emo residents who had signed the petition.
When you have 29 from our municipality against our sign at the west end of town says 1,400. What does that tell you?
It says that I have 29 members of my community who are very concerned about the safety of kids in our community.
In a release, Borderland Pride says the number of Emo residents who signed the petition is actually over 70. However, co-chair Douglas Judson says the petition and the declaration goes beyond simply numbers.
We're not talking about a public policy issue that is a majoritarian exercise. We are talking about minority rights. We set principles and law and policy to protect minority rights so that they do not become completely befuddled by ham-fisted decisions of councils like this.
Judson also took issue with this statement by Councillor Harold Bovin, who also voted against the motion.
Look at what has happened in our community. I'm now of the feeling that it's not the proper role of a municipal government to have special days regardless who's requested.
That's like the kind of governance you saw in like the Jim Crow South. Like in Montgomery, Alabama, when they decided when they were told by the courts they had to integrate their parks, they closed all the public parks, filled the swimming pools with dirt, and sold off the zoo animals. Does that really seem like a good approach to supporting your community?
Judson says Borderland Pride has reached out to a prominent Canadian human rights lawyer, and the organization will have more to say about the exact steps that will be taken in the coming days or weeks. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Canadian Pacific Railway had to deal with a major derailment just west of Ignace. Close to 50 grain cars went off the tracks Monday afternoon. Ignace Mayor Penny Lucas says CP Rail officials contacted her Monday night to provide details and told her no one was hurt and that no dangerous goods were spilled. CP crews were at the remote scene all day yesterday working to remove the cars and get the tracks repaired, and rail traffic was back moving last night. Officials with CP say they're continuing to investigate the cause. A long-shuttered grain elevator on Thunder Bay's north side has been targeted by some very daring graffiti artists. The old Manitoba Pool 2 elevator off Marina Park Drive now has a series of words and letters painted along the top windows. Local photographer Nancy Riley first noticed the graffiti when she was walking in the area on May 17th. It wasn't there a few days earlier, so she believes it was done sometime on the Friday or Saturday of the May-long weekend. Tags carry the names of popular Montreal graffiti artists Zonk and Paces, who are known for tagging high places to send a message. However, Riley says those artists coming to Thunder Bay is actually very unlikely.
So I think that these are copycats because they either usually tag their names or their messages have a point. And I think the person that tagged this was going for Zonk Pace was here, and they did the E first, and then they were like, oh, whoa, messed up and bailed on the message. So
Riley says that Zonk and Paces aren't typically known to visit smaller cities and usually venture to places like Toronto and Paris. The abandoned elevator property is owned by Buchanan Forest Products, who were not able for comment. Thunder Bay's Venture Mechanical is calling on other businesses to join the Lunchbox Challenge. Today, the local industrial contractor had close to 40 lunches delivered to its employees, but it wasn't just to boost morale. The main goal is to get other companies to support local restaurants. Venture owner John Jursic says he was inspired by a similar idea in BC and decided to try it in Thunder Bay. The company drew restaurant names out of a hat, and Bistro 1 on Dunlop Street was selected. The restaurant prepared lunch for every Venture employee across the city. Many local restaurants have been struggling since the start of COVID-19, and Venture itself has had to reduce its staff by 50%. But Jursic says it's still important to support other businesses who have been struggling even more from the pandemic.
We know that the restaurant industry is suffering, retail is suffering. There's many businesses that I think need our help right now, and my biggest thing, being a business of 30 plus years in Thunder Bay, I love Thunder Bay. I want to be able to go back out and go to my favorite restaurant when this all clears up, and I want them to be there. So we're going to support them. We're going to do what we can to help out in the community.
Jursic says he hopes other local companies accept the Lunchbox Challenge and support local restaurants by buying meals for their staff. A pair of high schools with the Lakehead Board have started an initiative to recognize some of their students for their commitment to learning during the pandemic. Dozens of teachers from Westgate and Superior, such as Marilyn Ailey, have been dropping off small treat bags to some of their most dedicated students. Officials from the two high schools wanted a way to show kids that their hard work from home is appreciated, as many students are struggling to adjust. The contents of the gift bags range from baking to puzzles and other activities.
It feels really good. Since I was homeschooled, I never took classes and I'd never been recognized at a school before.
It's hard to keep motivated, so I think this does help a bit. And just knowing that your hard work doesn't go unnoticed.
Finding different ways to be successful and continue with all the hard work that they're doing, and the chance to recognize them is just the icing on the cake, because they really deserve it. I've seen resilience like I've never seen before in our students, and I'm really proud of them.
Over 100 gift bags have gone out, and the schools plan on continuing to recognize the hard work of their students for the rest of the school year.
Well, Fiona, after the light